Hey y'all, Bobby Womack was a great singer. He had a powerful voice. He had the type of voice that could make someone cry. He was a singer, songwriter, record producer. He was a lot of things. Very interesting man. Robert Dwayne Womack was born March 4th, 1944 in Cleveland, Ohio, to Naomi Womack and Friendly Womack. He was the third of five brothers. His brothers were Friendly Jr., Curtis, Harry, and Cecil Womack. A lot of you probably know Cecil. He was a popular singer too. They grew up poor. Bobby said in his book that the neighborhood was so ghetto that we didn't bother the rats and they didn't bother us. Everybody had to survive. He said in the book that you could hear babies crying all the time, and he was constantly scalping himself, trying to scratch out flies. His father and his brothers all sang. They called themselves the Womack brothers. The book said his father, Friendly, quit school early. In fact, all of his brothers did. And around 12 or 13, they all went to work down the coal mines, but they kept up the singing, and pretty soon him and his mother were courting. They got married when his mother turned 13 and he was 19. He said his father predicted that he would have five sons and they were going to sing and he was going to call them the Womack brothers, just like the group he had with his brothers. And he was right. He said every year his mother had a baby boy until she got to five. He said he was the sickly one in the family. His mother said he was real weak, and every couple of months he came close to checking out. They would say he's going out, but he hung on. They called him Nobini on account of the fact that he had a knobbly lump on the back of his head. The book said the house stood on 63rd and Central, right in the heart of the city's ghetto. It was a pokey one-bedroom shack, a small bathroom about the size of a closet, and a living room a couple of strides wide. He said his mother and father slept in the living room, and the five of them slept in the big old bed, three at the top and two at the bottom. He mentioned how he would tug at the blankets in the winter to get some warmth. He said the first song he ever wrote was a reminder of being chilled and cramped and pulling at that threadbare army blanket. It was called Give That Man Some Cover. He said getting food on the plate was always a struggle. He said his mother got relief checks and she bought powdered milk, powdered butter, powdered eggs, powdered everything. It was never enough. In the book, he says sometimes my father would say, "We're going to fast today," and we'd all start praying. That's when I knew there was no food in the house and wouldn't be none too soon either. He said the lady next door would most likely slip a little something into their kitchen, and that's how it worked. He said mostly people all got together to try to help each other. He was raised Baptist, his mother played the organ for the church choir, and his father was a steel worker and part-time minister and musician who played the guitar and also sang gospel. Allegedly, their father repeatedly ordered his sons to not touch his guitar while he was away, yet all five brothers regularly played it while their father was at work. Allegedly, one night, 8-year-old Bobby broke a guitar string, then tried to replace the string with a shoelace. After his father, Friendly, saw that Bobby, who was missing a shoelace, had broken the string, he offered Bobby the chance to play the guitar for him in lieu of a whipping. When he finished, his father was in shock. Soon afterwards, Friendly bought guitars for all five of his sons. By the mid-50s, Bobby was touring with his brothers on the Midwest gospel circuit as the Womack brothers. Naomi was on the organ and Friendly Sr. on guitar. In 1954, under the moniker Curtis Womack and the Womack brothers, the group issued the pennant single Buffalo Bill. Sam Cooke, who's the lead singer of the Soul Stirrers, first saw the group performing in the mid-1950s. He became their mentor and helped them go on tour. Bobby mentioned in his book that he wanted to be like Sam Cooke, Bobby said what struck him straight off was how good-looking Sam Cooke was. He sure was. He talked about the way Sam dressed and that Sam didn't need a suit to look smart and how he wanted to look like Sam. He talks about how when Sam and the Soul Stirrers arrived in their town, he gave them a real boost. He said Sam was a pretty guy, and there would be all these girls screaming like at a rock and roll show. He mentioned that the church folks had a dilemma. They wanted Sam and these guys to tone it down, but when they looked out, those pews were filled with a whole new congregation of kids. They could never get to church on sermons alone. Bobby said his old man went to see the Soul Stirrers, and he told them he had 5 young boys and asked if they could open up the show. One of the guys said they should stick to Sunday school, but Sam wanted them to do it. He said he told them to get up there and work that house for him and the band. It was at the Friendship Baptist Church. He said they got on stage and Sam came out from the wings and introduced them. He said the kids in town that used to be down on them because they were singing this religious stuff suddenly tagged them as hip. He said usually when they had tried to hit on girls, they ignored them, but now they had Sam's blessing and nothing came down higher than that. They went on national tours with the staple singers. Curtis often sang lead. Bobby was allowed to sing alongside him, showing his gruff baritone vocals in contrast to his brother's smoother tenor. During performances, Bobby would sometimes imitate the role of a preacher, which later became his nickname. In the beginning of the 1960s, Sam Cooke formed SAR Records, or SAR Records, however you say it, and signed the Quinton to the label in 1961, where they released a handful of gospel singles. Then Sam changed their name to the Valentinos and relocated them to Los Angeles. They transitioned from gospel music to secular soul and a pop-influenced sound. Sam Cooke produced and arranged the group's first hit single, Looking for Love, which was the pop version of the gospel song Couldn't Hear Nobody Pray they had recorded earlier. The song was a hit and helped them to land an opening spot on James Brown's tour. The group's next hit was in 1964 with It's All Over Now, co-composed by Bobby. Their version was rising on the charts when the Rolling Stones covered it. Bobby was also a member of Sam Cooke's band, touring and recording with him from 1961. The Valentinos' career was rocky after the murder of Sam Cooke. When Sam Cooke died, it broke the hearts of many. It was a very sad time. Now, at Sam Cooke's funeral, Bobby showed up in Sam Cooke's suit and with Sam Cooke's wife, his widow. Bobby said in his book that he married his friend Sam Cooke's wife, Barbara, 3 months after he was shot to death in 1964. Guys, you should read his book. Ooh, child, it's interesting. Oh, Lordy. Sam had 2 funerals. The one in Los Angeles is where Bobby was, at the Mount Sinai Baptist Church, where he came with Sam Cooke's wife in his suit. After Sam died, Bobby claimed that Sam's widow Barbara turned to him for a shoulder to lean on at that time. When Bobby turned 21, he went on to marry Barbara. Bobby received backlash for doing this. He would go to radio stations and disc jockeys would throw away his records. Black radio wouldn't play his music for quite a long time. He was having issues with his family too. He said in his book that his brothers were reluctant to be around him. They knew the threats that were out there against him from marrying Sam Cooke's widow Barbara. They didn't know what to do, but without them, he said he was totally alone. His mother and father was also against the marriage to Barbara, so there was no family in his corner. He also got beaten by Sam's brother in Chicago. He said in his book that Sam Cooke's family had a real problem with him marrying Barbara, especially Sam's brother Charlie. He said Charlie said, "Man, anybody else could have married Sam's wife, but you? Sam loved you, man. If you ever come to Chicago." He said he knew what that meant. In the book, he said he figured if Charlie wants to do something, he wants to get it over with and done. He said Barbara and I flew to Chicago. We checked into the Roberts Motel. I called Charlie, told him I'm here. We're in 2112. He said Barbara was in the motel room loading bullets into a pistol. He said Charlie showed up with his two brothers. Bobby said I opened the door and Charlie punched me. He beat me so bad my whole head swelled up like a melon. My teeth came through my lip. He beat me unconscious. He even broke my jaw. Barbara came out of the bathroom screaming. She made a grab for the gun. She pointed it and pulled the trigger. It just clicked. I had removed the bullets while she was in the bathroom before our guest arrived. Charlie and his brothers left. The cops were called. When they arrived and saw my condition, they said Charlie would do time. Boy, this book is interesting, y'all. They arrested him later that evening, but I declined to press charges, he said in the book. He was released and Barbara and I went on with our lives. Now, on top of him marrying Sam Cooke's wife, Bobby went on to say in his book that he was actually involved with Sam and Barbara's daughter, Linda. One night, he got caught by Barbara. Let me read a part of this book for you. Child, this book, if you like some drama, I think you should read this book. You know, it's juicy stuff. But here's what it says in the book. My wife was packing a .32 pistol. It was the first thing I saw. It came around the corner followed by her, and she came fast, yelling, and I mean yelling, "Bobby, you son of a bitch, you bastard." I didn't wait for the rest. She was mad as hell. I scrambled into my pants, but all I saw was the black barrel of that gun coming closer, too close. I stumbled. Both my legs caught in the same trouser leg and tore a rip in those canary yellow strides. Damn. I hopped, staggered, fell, was up again, and then I ran. It sounded like Barbara was right on my tail. That screaming was loud. My heart was pounding louder. She was seriously pissed. Then I heard her daughter Linda behind. She was screaming too. "Don't shoot him! Don't shoot!" Barbara's response made me pick up the pace. I'm not going to shoot the bastard. I'm going to kill him. That's what the book says. Oh man, I was like Jesse Owens, flying. Zip out the bedroom, along the landing and down the stairs in one leap. I was out the house. I had the drop on her. Then I hit the driveway in my bare feet. The sharp gravel sliced into my skin and I sunk to my knees. Maybe I could make it to the car. It was a long shot, but the only one I'd got. I ducked into the garage, slammed the wooden door shut, and jammed myself against it hard. I hung on to that handle like my life depended on it. I looked around over my shoulder, and there was the Merc, all ready to rock and roll. The key, where was the key? On the counter in the kitchen or in the ignition. Barbara had caught up. Now she was the other side of the door, tugging and twisting at the handle, trying to rattle the thing off its hinges. I gripped that handle real tight. I couldn't get to the car now if I wanted to. "Come on, you bastard," she screamed. "Are you going to open up?" I didn't have time to answer because she shot me. Barbara put one of those .32 slugs right across my scalp. The bullet ripped through the door and parted my hair just like a barber might, nice and neat. Except this time it was on the right and faster, much faster. As the bullet whistled past, it felt like a bird, its wing gently clipping me, and then it punched a mighty hole in the garage wall opposite. A roar suddenly exploded, filling my ears, and when there was no room left to fill, the noise leaked into my skull and beat upon my mind. She had shot me. Oh man, my wife had shot me. Can you believe it? Did I deserve it? Yeah, maybe. But shot? I stared at the splintered hole in the door and put a hand, I was shaking like a daisy in a hurricane, to my temple. There was a trickle of warm, sticky blood, but it was just a graze. Lucky? Yeah, but for how long? There were 5 more bullets in that cylinder. My legs turned to jelly. I felt the blood and dropped like a stone on the concrete floor and played dead. The yelling had stopped. It was quiet. Time stopped. I played back the last few minutes in my head. It seemed hours since I'd crept into my stepdaughter's room, little Linda, just a kid, a teenager. She called me Daddy. I'd got up like I did most nights. Now me and Barbara were at each other's throat, supposed to be writing a song, strumming my guitar, but actually in Linda's room, in her bed. I'm lying there kissing Linda, and the light comes on. Guys, this book is something. You gotta read it. Okay, so it says here, "You dirty effing bastard. What are you doing with my daughter?" It was Barbara. She told me, "I'm going to KILLU. Get the F out or I will. KILLU. That's when she went to fetch that .32 with a deadly kick. And if someone is about to put a gun to your head, you get the hell up and get out of there. So now I was lying in the oil spills on the garage floor. I was scared shitless. I knew I had done something wrong, terribly wrong. I had let this girl run this on me, and I had let my, DICK speak for my conscience. But that has no conscience. This was the worst part of my life. I never did it to hurt Barbara and didn't do it to hurt Linda. I just couldn't be everything everyone wanted me to be and still be Bobby Womack. Now I thought I was going to die. I pressed my cheek against the cool slab. A drop of blood, maybe sweat, maybe both, eased out from under my hairline and slowly inched down my forehead, dripping onto my nose, slid a long piece, and then fell to mix with the oil and petrol. The door handle twisted. The door banged open and Barbara stepped into view. I squeezed one eye shut. From the other, I could see Barbara, her legs and her right arm, the gun still hanging from the end of it, and it was pointing at me. She looked ready to finish the job. Ooh, child. For a moment, all I could hear was her breathing. I held my breath. Linda, a pace behind, stepped up to me. "Oh my God," she screamed. "Oh my God, you've killed him." That shocked Barbara. "God, I shot him," I heard her mumble. Dear God. She turned and ran back to the house. Maybe she was going to call an ambulance. I jumped up and started running again, down the drive to the bottom of the hill below the house. I bumped into cops, scoping the neighborhood for housebreakers and other likely F-ups. They got one. I was standing down there in my shorts and nothing else. "What's going on?" asked one of the cops. "Man, I told them my wife just shot me. I should be dead." I felt like I might as well be. My friend and mentor, Sam Cooke, was dead. My wife, Sam's widow, had just tried to kill me and was about to leave me. And Linda, my lover, the girl I was supposedly destined to marry, she hitched up with my brother and never spoke to her mother again. That was all really effed up, and it wasn't about to get better. So Linda got married to Cecil. If you guys know who Cecil is, she married Cecil, and they stayed married until his death. But child, this book, Bobby Womack, My Story, Midnight Mover, you gotta read it if you like some mess. Because this is one book, I'm telling you. Oh, child. Whoa. Anyway, between 1965 and 1968, he toured and recorded with Ray Charles. He played guitar on recordings by Joe Tex and the Box Tops. He played guitar on a number of Aretha Franklin's albums, including Lady Soul. His work as a songwriter caught the interest of music executives after Wilson Pickett took interest in some of Bobby's songs and insisted on recording them. Among the songs were I'm a Midnight Mover and I'm in Love. Bobby signed with Minot Records in 1968 and recorded his first solo album, Fly Me to the Moon, where he had his first major hit with a cover of the Mamas and the Papas' California Dreamin'. Bobby partnered with Gabor Szabo and composed the instrumental song Breezin', which later became a hit song for George Benson. Bobby also worked with rock musicians Sly and the Family Stone and Janis Joplin, contributing vocals and guitar work on the Family Stone's album, There's a Riot Going On. Bobby wrote the song Trust Me for Joplin on her album Pearl. Bobby went on to be a successful solo artist. In 1972, the album Understanding was released, which had the song I Can Understand It. It was later covered by the funk band New Birth and the three sibling lineup of Bobby's old group, the Valentinos, and two hit singles, Woman's Gotta Have It and Harry Hippie. Harry Hippie later became Bobby's first single to be certified gold. Woman's Gotta Have It became Bobby's first single to hit number one on the R&B charts. Another hit album released after Understanding was the soundtrack to the blaxploitation film Across 110th Street. In 1973, Bobby Womack released another hit album, Facts of Life. It had a top 40 hit with Nobody Knows You When You're Down and Out, an older song. The song is Nobody Knows You When You're Down and Out, and that was an older song by Sam Cooke that Sam Cooke had done years before. His most successful single was released in 1974. It was a remake of his first hit single, Looking for Love. His solo version of the song became even more successful than the original with the Valentinos, becoming his second number one hit on the R&B chart and peaking at number 10 on the Billboard Hot 100, becoming his only hit to reach that high on the pop chart. Allegedly, Bobby was married 4 times. His first wife was Barbara, Sam Cooke's widow. His second wife was Evelyn Evans. He married her when he was 29. She was his personal secretary, allegedly. His third wife was Regina Banks, who he married at 19 years old. Together they had 3 children. Allegedly, in the early 90s, Regina left him and went to New York. They later remarried in 2013. Bobby had 6 children. 2 of them died before him. His first son from his marriage to Barbara, Vincent Dwayne Womack, was born in 1966. He allegedly committed suicide at the age of 21 by a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. That was really sad. His son Truth died at 4 months old after falling into a coma when he was found wedged between the wall and the bed. This really affected Bobby, and he dived deeper into drug addiction. Towards the end of the 1980s, he went into a rehabilitation center to get over his cocaine addiction, which he said he conquered. Congrats to him for that. Bobby ended up having prostate cancer, then other health problems would follow. He was diagnosed with early stages of Alzheimer's disease. When Bobby Womack died, he was in Tarzana, California at his home on June 27, 2014 at 70 years old. He was cremated and his ashes were interred at the Forest Lawn Memorial Park Cemetery in Glendale, California, in the Great Mausoleum Memorial Terrace Columbarium. If you're interested in the life of Bobby, read his book, Bobby Womack, My Story, Midnight Mover. That book is a telling tale. He left us with great songs. My favorite is If You Think You're Lonely Now. That's a good song. That just gets you emotional. Well, it gets me emotional. He just has that voice. Powerful. Do you remember his song, I Wish He Didn't Trust Me So Much? In 2009, Bobby was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He was definitely a great talent. Rest in peace, Brother Bobby. Subscribe and I'll see you next time.